Good evening, Placerville. It is 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call to order the August 13th meeting of the regular City Council, Placerville City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order and invite everyone to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's been a while since we've seen each other, and I hope everyone's had a good break, and I'll see if I can remember how to do this. May we have the roll call, please, Mrs. Zito?
Councilmember Rowley.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hagan.
Here.
Councilmember Patton is noted as absent. Mayor Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Here. Thank you. We now are on item 3, announcements and presentations to the public. And I'd like to start off by recognizing the fantastic 30th anniversary of National Night Out. And Interim Chief Scott, you and your team, Julie and Judy and your whole team from staff just did an amazing job. What a wonderful evening that was. And I know all of us enjoyed it thoroughly. And do you have any comments on this year's National Night Out?
Well, briefly, obviously we feel it was very much a success. It was a very fun evening. All of the members of the police department had a lot of fun with it, getting out and meeting with the community members, and it was just a great night. But thank you for the recognition.
Thank you for all your efforts. I think one of my favorite parts of National Night every year is just having the chance to ride around with the officers and the sergeants and going out in the neighborhoods and talking to the people, and it was a wonderful night. So thank you so much for all your efforts. My final announcement is that we have had to cancel the FPP workshop that was scheduled for this next Thursday, August 15th. We did not get the number of participants that the FPPC required in order to come up here and hold this workshop. So I regret that we have to cancel that, and want to acknowledge and thank from the bottom of my heart our city clerk, Susan Zito, who spent an inordinate amount of time wrestling down all the electeds and coordinating with the FPPC and the DA's office, and just really appreciate your efforts, Susan. You went above and beyond, as you always do. So appreciate that, and I'm sorry that
well, Wendy, I just
want
to say that I want to thank you for having that idea, and I think it was timely, and it's too bad that it didn't happen. And maybe sometime other than a summertime. Sometimes it's really hard to get people to do things in the summertime. Yeah. They've got vacations and whatnot.
That's a good point. And I think we can all just take advantage of going down to Sacramento and getting that information ourselves, which,
And it's online, and you can call, but,
would have been very helpful.
Yeah.
Susan.
I want to let everyone know, too, that the FPPC, speaking to Dixie Howard at the FPPC, they've started a new program. As we all know, when you call 1-866-ASK-FPPC, you spend an awful lot of time on hold. They have started an online email service that they promise to respond to you in 24 hours. So it is advice@fppc.ca.gov. Anyone can send their questions in, and a staff member will respond by the next business day. And in that email exchange, I think it might also be easier. They said they've got very favorable comments, because when you've waited so long on hold, by the time you ask a question, you forgot the other questions you were going to ask, and then you hang up and realize you're going to be on hold again for a while. This way you can start an email correspondence back and forth with whoever technical advice person you get hold of. And we have not given up the idea of the workshop. We're going to try it in the spring when the actual filing period is going on. And as you know, we couldn't get the numbers for the 87,200 filers because we were depending heavily on the county. They have far more than we do. We're going to be doing the 87,200 filers, and additionally, we're going to do our city code filers. So our city employees who are required to file the Form 700 would be included, and combined, we will have 25, and they said a combined number of 25 they will come up for.
Great.
So we'll shoot again for the spring.
All right. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate it. Are there any other announcements? Mr. Morris? No? All right. With that, we move on to item 5, adoption of the agenda.
Closed session.
Oh, I'm sorry. Closed session report. Sorry, City Attorney Driscoll.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas. Tonight in closed session, the council unanimously with those present. We noted that Councilmember Patton was absent, but those present.
John, we can't.
I'm sorry. Okay. The council tonight, with those members present, unanimously by a 4-0 vote with Councilmember Patton absent, rejected the claim of William Carey and Louis Ettinger. Other than that, the council did not take reportable action.
All right, thank you. Now we're on item 5, adoption of the agenda. Does council have any changes to the agenda? I would like to move item 13 immediately after the consent calendar.
Second?
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda is adopted with that change. Item 6, ceremonial matters. There are none tonight. And with that, we are on item 7, public comment. Mr. Morris, has there been any written communication that we need to report?
None other than, as the council knows, there's a consent calendar item tonight, item 8.8, I believe, is that the right one? The job
Yes.
descriptions? 8.8, we did receive, the council did receive a number of letters from employees regarding that item
Yes.
that can be addressed when we get to that item.
Perfect. Thank you. Item 7.2, oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda and that was in the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and when you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. So at this point, I'd like to open public comment.
Evelyn Veerkamp, Placerville. Mayor Thomas and members of the council. This will perhaps be the last time I shall have to address you regarding the threatening incident alleged by one of our business owners. It now seems that we have another side to the allegation Mayor Thomas shared with the April 30th neighborhood chat. The fundraising responsibility for the 2011 roundabout lawsuit had rested with only 2 representatives of the Friends of Historic Hangtown, one of whom was Charlene McCaslin, who shortly after the court's writ of mandate in favor of the roundabout petitioners moved out of state. She now informs us that during the fundraising efforts, she visited individuals who had made pledges in order to collect them. Except for one business owner, everyone who had made such a pledge honored it. However, each time Charlene visited that one business, the owner told her to come back another time. After several attempts to collect the pledge, she gave up and did not return. We suspect it was this owner who, having not wanted to honor her commitment, falsely declared Charlene's effort to collect the pledge as being aggressively threatening. Charlene is now informed of the allegation and is most willing to defend her character and thereby to protect the integrity of Friends of Historic Hangtown. Unlike the business owner in question, she does not wish to remain anonymous. We believe, Mayor Thomas, that you may have received some bad information. If any further discussion on this topic is needed, Charlene is most willing to discuss it and, if necessary, face her accuser. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address this council? Good evening.
Good evening. Robert Nelson, 27-year resident homeowner. First of all, I'd like to thank Officer Mike Scott for his years of service and dedication to this community. Enjoy your retirement when you do. And I'd also like to thank the council members of this. I'd also like the council members to thank the council members for respecting the laws and mandates that protect the children of this town. When the Haven is relocated this fall, many believe there'll be a revitalization of the Broadway Business District. Those I've spoken to agree with me on this. I'd like to ask you at this time where we are at on this, if we are on schedule for them moving on time, and where they might be going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Anyone else? All right. With that, we will close public comment. And I will be talking about that during council member reports tonight. The Hangtown Haven, where we are on that. With that, we move on to item 8, the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. Does any member of the council wish to do so?
I'd like to remove item 8.8.
All right, we will move item 8.8. Any other changes to the consent calendar? All right. Does any member of the public wish to comment on any item on the consent calendar? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council, and we'll need a roll call vote on items 8. Or we need a motion.
I'll move
Sorry.
8.8. I mean, I'll move 8.
We're a little
Consent
rusty.
calendar.
Okay. All right.
With the exception of 8.8.
Yeah.
I'll
Do we have a
second
second?
it.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Hagan and seconded by Council Member Borelli. May we have the roll call vote, please?
Okay, I need to recuse.
Oh.
I need to recuse myself on. I'll approve, but without 8.7.
All right, Council Member Wilkins will not vote on item 8.7. All right, thank you.
With Councilmember Wilkins noted as recused on number 8.7, Councilmember Borelli,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hagan,
Aye.
Mayor Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
All right, consent calendar carries. And now we move on to item should be item 13, which is items pulled from the consent calendar, which is item 8.8. And Vice Mayor Hagan, do you want to state why you pulled that?
I think at this point, we've received a number of inquiries from city employees, and with respect for them, we're going to like to table or continue it for 30 days, not to exceed 30 days.
Do we have a second or
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I second it.
been moved by Vice Mayor Hagan, seconded by Councilmember Borelli. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address this item? No. Seeing none, any further discussion from the council? All right. All those in favor of tabling item 8.8?
Aye.
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 Opposed? No. Motion carries. All right. Thank you. With that, we move on to item 9. First two readings. Let's see.
10.
What's that? 10, I'm sorry. Move on to item 10, public hearings. Item 10.1. I will state that we do not have a quorum for this item tonight because I have a conflict. I'm a board member of Marshall Medical Center, and I will need to recuse myself on taking action on this item. And Councilmember Patton is not here. And Councilmember Wilkins has a conflict because
Because I have property within 500 feet of the project.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
in light of that, we would not have a quorum. I would suggest that the council continue this matter to your next meeting, and that those of you who would have had to recuse yourselves had this matter gone to a discussion on the merits of it, can vote on continuing it, so that there would be a quorum for that vote.
Thank you for the clarification, City
I'll
Attorney
move it.
Driscoll.
Second?
I'll move continuation for not to exceed 30 days.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And with that, I would like to acknowledge that Mrs. Kingsley has had a written written communication to us on this item, and that request will be brought back when we see this item at the next date. So I wanted to acknowledge Mrs. Kingsley's written communication. And with that, we move on to item 10.2, entitlement extensions. And with that, I also need to recuse myself as I have a property that is within 500 feet of a proposed entitlement. And so I turn this over to you, Vice Mayor Hagan.
Okay. So at this time, Mr. Ravaz, would you let us know what's going on with item 10.2?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hagan. This is a proposal for a city-initiated amendment to the zoning ordinance that would extend for 24 additional months the time period for site plan reviews, variances, and conditional use permit developments that have been approved but have not expired on April 1st of 2013 and will not have expired before January 4th of 2014. Just a little bit of history about this extension request. This would be the third time that the council has considered such a request since the recession first hit. The city council granted a 12-month extension for these three types of development applications back on April 8th of 2009. Then the council again approved a 24-month extension back on April 8th of 2010, and this would be the third extension. Staff is recommending, I just want to point out that the Planning Commission did consider this and unanimously recommended that your council approve this amendment to the code. Staff is recommending then that you find that the ordinance amending section 10-1-0 of the zoning ordinance under the zoning code Z 2013-03 would be exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, and that is not a project. And number 3, introduce the ordinance amending this section of the zoning ordinance, waiving its first reading. Staff did receive comments, and these comments were provided by Brady McGuire. And looking at the comments, and you should all have copies of these, of his comments. Basically, he has two main issues that he's raising. The first one is the city is allowing development of illegal, substandard, bootleg commercial parking lots and then approving them year after year under temporary use permits and circumventing the city's planning ordinance and development code. I would just add that temporary use permits are not one of the development applications that's included in this extension. This extension is only applying to site plan reviews, variances, and conditional use permits. The temporary use permits are authorized under a different section of the code. They're only valid for 1 year, and so the applicant would have to reapply each year unless that temporary use permit, of course, was approved by either the Planning Commission or the City Council, which may have granted a longer period of time. But this particular comment would not be germane to the subject at hand, but I'm more than happy to answer any detailed questions about some of the more detailed questions that he raises in his letter if you feel that's appropriate. The second comment the writer states is that the city is granting entitlement extensions to commercial projects that most likely expired long ago. For example, Brew Road is 8 years old. Toad Hall is 7 years old, and Point View Holiday Express is 11 years old. If you look at your staff report, staff did provide a listing, and this is Exhibit B, a listing of some of the projects that we've identified that would be covered under this time extension. And so this wasn't meant to be the most definitive listing, but we wanted to spend a little bit of time identifying what those were. But I would look at this ordinance as basically comprehensive. It's broad brush. It is looking at all site plan reviews, variances, or conditional use permits that are still alive and granting them that extra 24-month life if they fall within that period of time that was specified in the code. So with that, that concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if you like at this time. I do have one last thing I'd like to pass out. This is a letter dated June the 15th of 2006 to Mr. Earl McGuire. He is, of course, Brady McGuire's father and partner in the Golden Center, in the Golden Plaza project. I want to provide you with this letter because it's very, very detailed in its content in terms of the status of that project back in 2006.
Okay. And then, as it goes to the extension of the time on this, is there any questions of staff at this point, Ms. Borelli?
I'm wondering, how long are we going to keep doing this extension? I thought that the main reason that we did this was because of the economy and what had happened, and a lot of these folks had, you know, it was financial problems. And I'm wondering, things seem to be ironing out now, and what I'm wondering is, you know, these were approved so long ago. Has the status changed that would, or is this going to come before the staff to review this again if they initiate this within the next 24 months? Do you know what I'm saying?
Thank you, Councilmember Borelli. I'll try and answer your question. Essentially, you're correct. The council was responding to the Great Recession.
Yes.
And then the tightening of credit. A lot of these commercial endeavors were not able to seek credit in order to complete their project, and so it allowed these projects then to not expire and stay alive, such that when the economy improved, available credit was then available to finance the projects, they can move forward. So staff feels that that's still a current situation. Credit is still tight, though it is loosening. The economy is improving slowly but surely. We would still recommend going forward and approving the 24-month extension. It adds an additional 2 years to the life of the projects. With respect to the question regarding whether or the age of the projects, generally speaking, I think from staff's perspective, unless there's been substantive change to design standards or other city regulations that would affect the projects, we don't believe there has been that would affect these projects, and so therefore we still recommend moving forward. But they would be, in essence, vested at the time that they submitted their application. The city would not be able to impose any new conditions on the projects. They would be able to move forward complying with the conditions of approval that were placed on them at that time that they were approved.
Well, I was kind of thinking along the lines of neighbors or road changes or anything like that, whether that could be brought up. I know we can't impose, however, that would be imposing something if something had changed, and maybe nothing's changed drastically.
Well,
like over on Brew Road, that might be you know, because, you know, with the highway changing and stuff, I don't know whether that makes any difference. I'm just bringing that up as
Right.
I don't think it would, but I'm just bringing that up as an
Right.
example.
Yeah, we don't believe it does.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I think even though the economy appears to be back, I mean, commercial lending is not back. I mean, there's just nothing available from people I'm talking to anyway in that area. So, on the other thing, they'd still have, many of these are entitled, but they haven't pulled their permits on any of these that I'm aware of, so that we would still have the opportunity. We're still going to be doing inspection, making sure they're complying with all the entitlement requirements to go along with the entitlements. So we're not giving up any of those particular things. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, Vice Mayor Hagan.
Thank you. Did you have any questions?
I guess you already clarified that the difference we had when we got this letter, that the temporary use permits are not covered under this. So just to clarify for anybody who's watching, maybe something like the Hangtown Haven would not be covered under this extension.
That is correct, yes. Councilmember Wilkins, the Haven is covered under a temporary use permit, and staff did grant a 90-day extension to that, as was permitted under the conditions of that temporary use permit. And I believe it expires in mid-October.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, I'd bring it before the audience. Anybody in the audience that has any questions on item 10.2? Oh.
Good evening, Council. Brian Briggs, Chair of the Planning Commission. Just making myself available to you if you were to have any questions about our thought process in making this recommendation. We went back and forth, some folks along the lines that Councilwoman Borelli was talking about, whether we should keep doing this. Some of us were wondering whether this should be longer, 36 months as opposed to 24 months. So this is where we came to. It's middle of the road, and I think it was a good choice on our part, and stand by the recommendation.
Thank you. Any additional questions? And please state your name for the record.
Brady McGuire, Golden Plaza, 650, 670 Placerville Drive. I trust you all have my letter that I turned in on Monday.
Right.
I think the letter speaks to two major issues that we have as commercial property owners. Our commercial project, we were told by the city that our entitlements had expired after 8 years' time. What I'm seeing here in this list of projects are 3 very old projects that are 7, 8, and 11 years old, yet you're granting extensions to those. We certainly would like our entitlements extended, especially in light of all the improvements we were required to make to city standards in 2010. It's very frustrating from a commercial property owner's perspective and developer's perspective to have had to comply with the city's demands of installing a parking lot for a future building that doesn't exist, and then find out after the fact that there are a bunch of illegal bootleg parking lots that were probably 7 to 8 times the size of the gravel area we had on Placerville Drive. And the city has been approving those and rubber stamping the approvals after the fact with temporary use permits. And when you do this each year, it's really not temporary, it's a perpetual use, and it grants approval. We just want to see a level playing field where everybody's treated the same and the city standards are enforced. And that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilkins, for pointing that out. Also, I think I saw on the list Mercy Way, and I saw overnight parking there a couple of days ago. Is that allowed? And it's believed that they may have discharged their gray water into the creek the way they were positioned. So just to let you know, thank you very much.
Good evening, Michael Drobish, Placerville. Just for the record, what dollar amounts, if any, would the city be forgoing if approving the extensions? And then just the retroactive portion, I really find a problem with retroactive governmental actions. So I would rather see, if you do approve the extensions, it goes forward from your approval date. Thank you.
I just had one follow-up comment. Brian Briggs again. It's my recollection that Mercy Way is a conditional use permit, so it would be under the provisions of this extension, but I believe they are coming back for a review. I think it was 6 months or something like that after their permit was issued. So I just wanted, if the council didn't have that in the forefront of their mind, I believe that's the case.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other comments, I'm going to close public comment at this point, and we'll ask staff to answer a couple of those questions. The questions about retroactive, are we, my understanding of these are all current, and I'm not sure the exact date that we last approved these, but can you give me the approximate dates when these were all approved? Or, I know this is not a comprehensive list, this is a sample list that you have in front of us. And I
Right,
forget
that
when
is
last year was a year and a half or 2 years ago when we did this, but I don't think it was.
The last extension approved by the council was on April 8th of 2010, and that was a 24-month extension. And prior to that, the council approved a 12-month extension on April 8th of 2009. That list is it's not a guaranteed of, you know, fully listing every project, but we tried to capture those because when it was before the Planning Commission, there was interest raised about what projects were affected, so we put that list together as quickly as we could. As far as being retroactive, this would only affect permits that are still alive, still valid, that have not expired on April 1st of 2013 and will not expire before January 1st of 2014. So that's the window of the expiration of any current permit out there, those are granted the 24-month extension.
Okay.
But they have to come before,
They have not expired at this point in time. So as far as being retroactive, this ordinance does not reach to any projects that have already expired. Those are, they're expired, and they would not be covered under this.
Okay.
I have.
Stephanie, just go ahead.
Okay, there's one listed on here that I'm not going to mention, I'm not going to name names, but I heard there's a bankruptcy or foreclosure involved. Is that permit going to be allowed to be sold if the banks take that over? Are they going to be able to?
Yes, that is correct. These development, these land use permits run with the land.
Okay.
And so any new owner of the property then would be able to act upon that approved entitlement and construct whatever was approved by the city. It doesn't affect the permit.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Okay. At this time, consider recommended action at this point. Oops. I'll make the motion then that we adopt the staff report and approve the extensions at this point for item number 10.2.
I'll second.
And that would be to introduce the ordinance, make the
Introduce
findings
the
and
ordinance.
introduce the ordinance, right.
Oh, and waive the first reading? That's what I thought it said here, so but thank you.
Those are the three that are listed, right?
Yes. Introduce the ordinance, okay. Sorry. Ms. Cito.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hagan?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item 11.1. At this point, I need to call the mayor back in. We're at 11.1.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Hagan. We now come to item 11.1, and at this point, I also need to step down as my husband owns a business within 500 feet of this, so I have a conflict of interest. Vice Mayor Hagan, you're up.
Sorry about that. I should have left you in the back room. Okay, at this time, it's my understanding, Mr. Rivas, that the owner of the property has requested that we extend this or continue this item.
Yes, that is correct. They are requesting that this item be heard by the council at your regular September 10th meeting.
Okay. So I guess it's the two of us. No, there's three of us. I'm sorry. Gee.
I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still here. I thought you'd recuse yourself. I'm sorry. Okay, so at this point, I'll consider a motion.
I will move that we put it to the regularly scheduled meeting on September 10th.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. We move it to September 10th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Item
Canal.
11.2. And now the mayor can come back. I think she can stay for this one.
All right. Okay. With that, we are on item 11.2, adopt a resolution approving a supplement to the application service provider agreement with SunGuard Public Section, Inc. for the Click2Gov online bill pay software. And sounds like an exciting proposition. Good evening, Mr. Warren.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. This item's been a long time coming, and I'm very excited about it. For
Can
several
you move your
years-
microphone closer, Mr. Warren? Thank
Can
you.
you hear me now? How about if we do these ones?
Not too well.
How's that?
Much better, thank you.
Great. So for several years, the community, the council, and city staff have desired a system that would provide ratepayers with online access to their utility account information and the ability to make payments electronically via the internet. Further, there is a demand for the ability to renew and pay business license taxes, alarm permits, and other city charges online. It's important that the system used to accomplish this be PCI compliant and work seamlessly with the city's existing financial software. If implemented, the proposed Click2Gov software would accomplish all these things for the city and more. Shortly after converting the city's current financial software back in 2006, staff planned on implementing a new online bill pay software called Click2Gov. The City Council did adopt a project for Click2Gov back in 2006-2007. However, the project was later deferred because of budget constraints. Now that the economy has stabilized and the city's financial position has improved, staff is recommending the project be resurrected. So tonight, Carlene Goodell, as well as Leah Buckley, representatives from SunGard Public Sector, are here to give a presentation outlining Click2Gov software and answer any questions the council or the public may have about the software. So with that, I'll hand it over to Leah.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Council, for allowing us this time to present tonight. So I have a question for you all. How many of you actually use online banking now or online bill pay? Of course you do. Most everybody does nowadays, and we're really similar in that because, as you may have guessed, I have a really heavy travel schedule, and that is how I get everything done and stay on top of my game using online bill pay, and I choose to partner with Wells Fargo for that. Using Click2Gov, your citizens are going to choose to partner with SunGard Public Sector, and they're going to expect to do business online and be able to look up information about their utilities and pay their bills online as well as renew their businesses online. So today what we're going to look at is Click2Gov, which is our citizen-facing web offering for our Navaline clients, as Dave Warren just said. We will actually view a real quick slideshow here, which is going to show us the common features used by many of the applications. And then we're going to take a deeper look into utility billing, as far as what it has to offer via the web, as well as payment processing, and then we're going to do a review of business licenses in Click2Gov. So let's take a look at some of the common features that several of the applications will be using in Click2Gov, features like master accounts and online wallets. So these opening web pages that you see here, these could be made to look like your current web page. The header and footer information can all be adjusted by you, and there's additional space at the right so you can add text that you need. These are what we consider our welcome screens, and they have information that you might want to share with your citizens. We'll take a look at some actual ones in just a moment. To access utilities or online or our miscellaneous receivables online, your users must log in. They could create a master account with their own username and password to access just one account or to link several of their accounts. So the email address that you see here is used to send a verification notice to the citizen, but it also could be used for e-bill notifications too. The links you see here on this side, they're just another convenience for both your staff and your citizens to use in case the user forgets their username and password. Again, something many of us have done ourselves, right? So the system actually emails the citizen the information they need. And what's nice is that there's actually no staff interaction required, which saves time and phone calls. So an email similar to this is sent to the new user when they sign up to link their accounts. And it's an account verification. And of course, the information on this, the data that you see here, is all designed and determined by your staff. So it gets the information that you need to your citizens. Once your master account is created, a citizen who owns several properties within your city, they can link their accounts. So for instance, in this example, you can see I have several rental properties and I went ahead and linked those accounts to my one sign-in so I can access both of my accounts. Your citizens can also set up what we call an online wallet. This is where they would store their credit card data, and they could set up to store electronic check data or an e-check. Just like your online banking, you see here you can actually choose to receive notifications if there is a change to the account or a transaction's posted. So here's a sample of a transaction notification sent by the system with no interaction needed from your staff. And your users, again, choose to receive notifications like that. Once your credit card data is added, the information cannot be accessed. In case you're wondering about security, we all do, the data is not stored locally. and it is heavily masked. So even if we tried to get out the credit card number, it'd be impossible for us to get that information out. This is all PCI DSS compliant. Those are security standards for credit card processing. Data is stored on our server at SunGard, and SunGard's gone through the work to get compliant for this. Your customers could set up an e-check, and any payments made using that e-check would take money right from their checking or savings account. Once it's set up, whenever your citizen chooses to pay an account, they'll have a choice of which payment form they want to use. And here you can see both the e-check and the Visa that I've set up on my account. Should they choose not to store credit card or e-card or e-check, that's fine too. They can just enter in a credit card number and the information that they need. That choice, again, is entirely up to them. So that's just a real quick review of the features that are common to Click2Gov applications. For further convenience, we saw that utility accounts can be linked creating a master account, which also allows your users to store their credit card information or e-check information in their online wallet. So now let's look at some of those really helpful features with utility billing and what your citizens are really going to be using this for. More specifically, we're going to view consumption, lists and charts, we're going to view billing and payment history, and we're going to also look at making a payment online and how easy that is. So since I have an account set up and I have accounts linked, you can see what this looks like to me now. Going in, signing in, this is how I see my accounts. So selecting one of those, I can actually set up here, what you're seeing is managing my e-bill notifications. So if your citizens select e-bill, they can receive an e-statement, they could receive a paper statement, or they can choose to receive both. Again, that choice is entirely up to them. With e-billing selected, they would get an online notification just like you're seeing here. It lets them know when monies are due and what monies are due. They can access your web page then to go in and make that payment. So we're going to take a look at an actual client's website and how the citizen will get into their accounts to review the billing, payment, and consumption for their account, as well as make that payment. So this is one of my current cities. They actually gave us permission to come out here and use their website to show you all how it would actually look. So you can see here they've got a nice quick link for us to go out and pay our utilities. And then once we went into that link, we actually got some great information. They gave their citizens instructions, information, and any links necessary to get into their utility accounts. So you can see here where we're going to go into that utility ePay and actually take a look at one of our accounts. Where's my little... Well, so imagine, that was my big wow moment. There was noise and a ripple, and it didn't do it. So this is the dream sequence. Imagine, I'm actually going to be one of your citizens here in the city of Placerville, and we're going to utilize GovNow through your web page. So this login screen, again, is where I'm going to sign in with that username and account that I just set up in my master account. I can look at some of my account information. This is where I can view my account status, my account balance, as you see here, any past due amounts I might have. I can also see any services that I have here within the city and any metered or non-metered services. And in my case, I want to look at my water metered service, and I want to view some of my consumption. So what's really nice is when viewing the consumption, your citizens can see their average daily use as well as their average 30-day use. Or they can view the consumption report list detail for a little more detail. So a report list detail like this will view so they can see the last actually year in review, quick view, and they see their average daily use per month as well as their total usage per month. If they prefer, they could see it in a nice graph, much easier to read. So I'm actually looking at my 2013 account, my water usage, my consumption for 2013, starting in January all the way through the month of July. If I prefer, I can look back at any months that I have been a member, have been paying utilities here in the city. All that data is stored, and I can view each of those charts, and I can compare year to year how much I use historically each month, kind of see where I'm going up and down. If I'm using too much water. Or, if it's really helpful, I can look at each of those years on a side-by-side basis like you're seeing here. So to help out with that legend, what you're seeing is each year from like 2010 all the way up through this year, and the legend is telling me where 1 is January and it's the dark pink, 2 you see is February in purple, all the way through December, which is in olive, and number 12. So you can see where a chart like this might be really helpful, and I can see over the last 3 years, historically, I've used a lot more water in July and August, probably due to less rain and the drought-like conditions we've had recently, right? So another feature that is really nice is I can view my billing history, which is where I would see any of my current charges and any balance forward on a monthly basis. I can also see any amounts due for each of those bill dates. And if you notice, there's actually a hyperlink. These are colored. Those are hyperlinks. So I can click on that and see actual charges and actual bill detail for that particular month, which again might really help me better understand what my water charges were when I got my bill. So they can also, like in this case, I'm viewing my monthly payment history, so I could see any dates that my payments were made and when those were applied. And as we all know, sometimes we mail in a payment, it doesn't seem to get applied, and a late charge incurs. Well, this way I can see that, and I can see why. A service summary is just another area that your citizens could find really useful, because they can see what services they have, and then they can actually view a summary chart to better see the payment history for each of those services. So this is an actual service payment history, and what this is showing me is that over the last year, you can see we're starting in October, my payment amounts really dropped. So that might help me a lot with my own personal budgeting to figure out when I need to budget more money for water versus less, right? So the consumption reports and the billing history are great information for your citizens to have available at their fingertips. It saves time for your staff because you take less calls to answer those questions and, about these services. And of course, it eliminates the need to pull the reports for the citizens because they can get all that information online. But what's really the biggest time-saving feature here is that ability to make those online payments. So really, to make an online payment, I come right out, I select immediate, I go out here, I can change the amount, so if I don't want to pay my full amount due, I don't have to. I could pay part now and part later. The system will let you do that. And then, because I have set up a master account, you can see where my credit card and my e-check data is stored. I can select those, or I could choose a different credit card if I needed to. So by selecting my credit card, all that information is stored and it comes in for me. I do not have to re-enter it, so that's how fast it makes it for me, the citizen. I just have to click, I review what my payment and charge history is, I hit submit, and I'm done. One other feature I want to talk to you about real quick is an option to consider is auto drafting. So if this is offered by the city, this is where on Click2Gov your citizens can enroll to have auto drafting set up. And this is where once the utility billing charges are created in the system, it will automatically draft that money right out of my checking account, which of course results for you all in much more timely payments, and no credit card charges are incurred. So it's a nice convenience for both the city and your citizen, because I never have to think about it as a citizen traveling. You're going to take that money right away, and I know my bills are getting paid. So it's easy to see functionality that your citizens will find useful, and that's going to save time and money for your city and for your citizens. They can easily access consumption, billing, and payment information, and they can choose several different options for making those payments. Just like utility billing, business licenses also allows your citizens to access data about businesses within the city here. So it eliminates that phone call to the city offices to get some basic information. Plus, if I'm a business owner, I can access Click2Gov to renew my business online and pay that business renewal online. So a quick search by business name is going to give you a list of what businesses are out there. In this case, I just did a real simple search by my name because I knew I had businesses out there. So, and then you notice they have that hyperlink again. The business names are blue. That's a hyperlink. So I can click on that and get information about the business, maybe information I need, like a phone number. Or I can see if the business is actually renewed, so I know that a business that I'm patronizing is in compliance with the city, right? So that's important to me, and I know I pay attention to that in my particular city since it is what I do for a living. I do look for that. So if you're a business owner like I am, I can actually link all 4 of my businesses under one account. This way I can go out and renew and pay those online too. So any renewal data that the city tracks, such as gross receipts, that's something that restaurants would have to turn in and help calculate their renewal license bill. or contractor license data that I need to have in order to issue a permit. And any additional charge data. Sometimes I collect data about number of employees, and that helps calculate those renewal charges also. All of that I can collect right here through the web. And then the payments are made just like you saw in utility billing, where I would select my associated card on my e-check, right? So, some of the benefits of business licenses: the ability for your citizens to access business data online, the ability for the business owners to submit their renewal data and pay those renewals online. So what's the real benefit here to the taxpayer and to the city in adopting this? We can start with reduced cost. Utilizing e-bill, of course, means less paper and postage, and auto drafting saves money incurred with credit card transaction charges. Increased responsiveness. What was available to me 8 to 5 is now available to me as a citizen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if I get home and I notice my utility bill is due like today, but I didn't make it into the city, I can still get online and pay that before delinquent charges incur the next day, right? The other thing I like is improved employee productivity. Your citizens can access the web, they can get the data they need, and they don't have to make phone calls to the staff to get that. Also frees up your staff for work on projects and any other initiatives that you might have planned. So with Click to Gov, your citizens can get the data they want via the web rather than coming into the office or calling. It's a win-win for both your citizens and your staff because we all know time is money. Thank you for your time and partnering with SunGuard with Click to Gov. And we're here to answer any questions if you have those.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Leah, for your very clear and presentation. What an interesting proposal. I really appreciate that. At this point, does the council have any questions for Leah or Carlene?
I do.
Yes, Vice Mayor Hagan.
Auto draft, not a problem. Setting that up for the customers. Can they select the dates that are due? In other words, I get my billing on the 10th, but I want to pay it on the 15th or the 20th. Can you select those on when you open up the either for your drafts, automatic drafts, or for your select to pay?
Right. When you set up auto drafting within the city in the current software, you select what dates you want those auto drafting dates to happen.
Okay. And can we add other billing for different departments to this later without a substantial increase in? We don't want to start over again unless we go to another company.
Okay, well, what I will tell you is I know you're looking at doing utility billing, miscellaneous receivables, and business licensing right now. And with miscellaneous receivables, that is where I would get a bill and have the ability to pay any other charges that the city sends, like a recurring tax bill or anything like that. Is that what you're asking?
No, if somebody in the Recreation Parks Department sees one of our program ads and they want to sign their child up for this event or these programs, hopefully we could fill it out online, but it would also generate a dollar amount that's due. Is there a possibility that we can add this kind of a feature to it so that we can process that?
If I may, Vice Mayor Hagan, our current recreation software has the ability to do that, to expand to do that. It's a different format. There's a fee that we would have to pay per transaction.
We pay a fee for this one too, though, right?
A small fee, yeah.
Okay.
This would be more significant. Rather than paying a flat fee for maintenance, it would be a per transaction fee, a much larger number, but you're not
we already have that
it.
software is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
But it's a different format. It's a cloud-based format.
Okay.
And actually, I know Steve Ewell and Matt Lishman looked at that probably 5 years ago. And again, when the recession hit, it kind of got shelved.
Right.
But that's something that we want to bring back and for you to consider.
And currently
it would be very similar to this, but it would be a different piece of software.
Right. And currently parking tickets are paid out of the area. Is there a possibility we can bring that back in-house and add it to our computer software where it'd be hands-free type thing for your department?
We could provide a link to Enforcement Technology, which is the firm that collects our parking citations.
Okay.
Be happy to do that.
I just think the more we can do on this, the more we're going to save in postage, the more we're going to save in billing charges, and the convenience to the customers and consumers are going to be substantially better the more that we can do.
Right. This particular piece of software also can marry up to and I hope I don't speak out of turn, but there's also a module for permits and planning. We looked at it earlier, last couple years. Our director, Rivas, hasn't had a chance to look at it yet, and we
Okay.
haven't had a chance to really talk about it, but that's something potentially the city could expand if it worked for Pierre's department,
Yeah.
or something similar to it.
Okay.
This particular piece of software could be used for that.
Great.
Great. That's the questions I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Wilkins? No question? Councilmember Borelli?
Yes, for those of us that don't,
Don't use the computer?
don't
No.
use this, no, I use a computer, but I don't pay, I don't bill pay. Can we still have access to our account on,
Yes.
so?
Are you asking if, as long as there's a link through your city webpage, like what you saw at City of Temple, you'd be able to, using your bill, your utility bill,
Okay,
you can set it up where if you don't want to set up a master account, I of course highly recommend it because then I don't have to know my account number to get in. But you can just sign in with your account number and your password too.
okay.
So that's up to you.
So I establish a password and.
You can.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's why I like the master account because I can use the same username and password to get into utilities, to get into business licenses, to get into my miscellaneous receivable bills. Say I have a recurring tax bill and a code enforcement bill where I would have to get into both. So it's much easier for us, your citizens. They don't have to remember 3 username and passwords.
And one other question, you mentioned something about, it kind of went by me really quickly, but about checking on other accounts. How did you say that? You said,
Okay, good question. I have a couple of rental properties, so I own 2 different homes, and I pay the utility bill on both of those homes, so I linked both of those together.
oh, okay.
So I can go out and look at either property, see the consumption, what's happening, if my tenants are using a lot of water and I need to raise their rent,
Gotcha.
et cetera.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I see tremendous benefits for all of our citizens being able to track their usage, especially from the graph standpoint, help personal budgets, help, cut down watering, just help manage our local, our personal finances. I love that feature. Have a couple questions maybe for staff. How would this software affect our billing process? Would we still be sending out, water bills like we do, or would that eventually cut down on that process and staff time in doing so?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what this does is provides a tool to minimize the amount of paper bills that we send out, but it's really voluntary. So if the account holder chooses to have an electronic bill without a paper bill, they can do that, or they can do both. It's really up to them. So yes, it would cut down on paper. It could reduce the amount of postage, so on and so forth. And I think as far as a collection standpoint, it'll improve our collections because you're dealing with bank drafts and credit card transactions rather than paper checks that can get lost or misplaced, excuse me.
Great, yeah, wonderful. And I also shared the same question as Vice Mayor Hagan. I appreciate the fact that as we look at automating more of our building department, being able to integrate it into this process could be extremely beneficial. So that's wonderful. Yes,
I do have a question now.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Okay. As more people opt for just the paperless billing and they're not getting a mailer, what about when we want to send them little notifications in their water bill? Would we have like an ad on banner, or how would that work?
That's a good question. And maybe Leah can help me. Can you attach a PDF attachment to that email as well? So say if we had a flyer in electronic format that we could attach to the email going to the customer with their electronic bill? Is that
I'm not
possible?
quite sure on that. I would have to take that up with our guys. So it's a question that Dave can, I can send Dave information about that. But right now, I'm not sure if I can attach anything to that automatic notification. It is something that is set up and designed by your staff. So it's very possible, but I just don't know about that at this moment.
We'll get back to you on that.
We could do a workflow that would be triggered by that process, so we'd need to look into it, but we will do so.
Right, to see if you can make an attachment. But otherwise, any information you want going out on that e-bill is designed by you. So rather than an attachment, if it's something that you need to be letting them know about, you just put that on the email notification, right?
So Leah, could we embed, say, another message? We could embed a further message beyond the bill.
Right.
Just an announcement, or say a picture, or some other.
Or a link.
A link?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh.
So the answer
Great.
is yes, we could do that.
Just had it
Excellent.
as a link.
Yeah, good question. All right, Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the presentation. At this point, I'd like to open it up to members of our audience if they have any questions. So please stand by, see if we have any further questions. At this point, I will open public comment. Please come to the podium and state your name.
Patty Buellert. I live in Placerville. I want to know how much this is going to cost somebody.
All right.
If it's the city, the people, well, the people are the city, but how much is this going to cost?
We will get that detailed for you, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
please.
Good question, always a good question. Thank you, Patty. Any other public comment?
Good evening, Michael Drobish, Placerville. That's along the same lines of my question. Seeing that there's going to be the startup cost of $18,200 and then ongoing monthly costs of $6,419.
No.
Annual.
I made that mistake too, reading it originally.
Monthly access fees.
$900.
Total for the remainder.
For the rest of the month.
And then
the rest of the year.
I see the transaction fee that I suppose would be charged to the customer. So a little math there would figure out if the customers are fully supporting the cost of this or if the taxpayers as a whole are subsidizing it.
We'll get that answered for you. Thank you, Michael. Any other questions? At this point, I will close public comment. I'll bring it back to Mr. Warren. Can you explain how this is planning on being financed and what does it mean to the endpoint consumer?
Sure. As outlined in the staff report, the one-time setup costs, including license fees for the software, professional services for training and whatnot, is $18,200. That's a one-time cost. Once we pay it, we don't have to pay it again. There is an access fee, which is like a maintenance fee for SunGuard to maintain the software, provide updates. They're also maintaining the hardware, because this is cloud-based. So we wouldn't have a server at City Hall. They do everything. And that total cost for this fiscal year is $6,419. There is also a 5.5-cent transaction fee for what we call the gateway, so that the software can interface with a credit card transaction through the bank. That 5.5 cents, the plan is for the city to bore that cost as a whole. In other words, the ratepayer is not going to pay that when they pay their bill. All they're going to pay is the actual bill amount. Both the one-time costs and the operating costs for this fiscal year can be afforded through the CIP project, so you don't have to revise your budget. Next year, we will have to incorporate the annual access fee of $11,303 into the budget, the operating budget. So, and the plan is, we're hoping by December this will go live, and ratepayers will actually be able to use this software in December to pay their bills, pay AR bills, business license, so on and so forth.
So what is the anticipated cost to the consumer after, next year as we build this into the?
If you look at it as an average, it's about $3.35 per account.
Per year?
Per year.
Per year.
Per year, not per month.
Not per month, that's per year.
Okay.
And my understanding,
Yes, absolutely.
my understanding, Dave, too, this should be offset by our savings in postage and paper,
Right.
which, assuming 25% of our ratepayers go on to e-billing.
Yeah.
I know the insurance company is pushing us like crazy to get people to go on e-billing because it saves them thousands of dollars a month in postage. Our postage bill for billing, a regular billing cycle every 2 months is about what?
Right now it's running per billing cycle about $1,000 a billing every 2 months.
Wow.
About 1,000 every 2 months. So, if we can get half the people on e-billing, why we're going to save, $500 a month just in postage alone, not counting bank service charges and time away, time out of the office and answering phones and taking calls. And so we should see a substantial, I at least would imagine after the first year, we're probably at least a break even.
Right. And from a managing standpoint, over time, it'll free up time that normally would be for more remedial work to do other things, to maximize the staffing we have. And it's just a more efficient way of collecting your revenue.
Piggybacking on Vice Mayor Hagan's comments, you said that the 5.5 cent transaction fee would be basically borne by the city. Although if a person is sending in their bill, it's going to cost them the price of a stamp, and I'd much rather pay 5.5 cents than the cost of a postage, 45 cents for a postage stamp. So, 46. Yep. Okay, I've been on vacation. So that if you look at it that way, 5.5 cents, is a bargain to our consumer. So, any other comments from council? No. Anyone wish to float a motion?
I'll move that we authorize the city manager to sign a contract and adopt the resolution approving the supplement to the application for the service provider.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Hagan and seconded by Council Member Borelli. And this does involve money, so roll call vote, please, Mrs. Zito.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hagan?
Aye.
Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Motion carries. And Leah and Carlene, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we look forward to the increased access for our citizens as time goes on. So thank you very much.
I'd also like to thank Dave and the department, the finance department, for following up on this. I've been requesting that we try to do something like this for the last couple of years, and I really appreciate you guys doing the research and getting this completed.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Great. With that, we move on to item 12, council reports and requests for future agenda items. And we'll start with Vice Mayor Hagan to my left.
Let's see, I was going to say, I've been acting mayor most of this meeting, but other than that, I was going to say I didn't take down my notes, but I had this past week, had the Transportation Commission meeting, also had the same day, had on the first SACOG Transportation Committee meeting down in Sacramento. That's my primary two things. We are doing some work within the city to make sure that our transportation improvements can move forward. At the local transportation committee, we moved and got some funding for our walkway in the back here, our parkway, our trail. And then we also funded the design and the, hopefully next year, the work that we can do from the top of Ray Lawyer Drive back down into Placerville, parallel to Forney Road along the railroad tracks for another trail. So that'll link up the city all the way to Camino just about, and then west to Missouri Flat Road. So that would be a significant improvement in our trails, and that was funded to the tune of about $220,000 or something like that total for the two projects through the Transportation Commission, and was approved this week. So
great. Thank you so much. Councilmember Wilkins.
Okay, it's been so long. There were 2 transit meetings that we had, and mostly I had a couple meetings with some of the citizens, which are always my favorite, but also we had the retirement party, I guess like the 4th one for Chief Nielsen, but that was really cool.
He went out in style.
Yeah. And that was cool because it was like Western theme, even though very few people dressed Western. I did, and that was fun. Tractor Supply grand opening was fun. All of us were there, and that was really awesome. And then, of course, National Night Out was way cool because I didn't even know until a couple of days before that we got the escorts with the officers, and I got Lieutenant Nida, and it was so cool to go in the police car and go and shake everybody's hand, and I got to ride in the this time. Yeah, so that was probably the best one. I don't know if I had to choose a best, maybe. Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Borelli.
I was busy.
Good for you.
We had a SEDCOR meeting, which is, Sierra Economic Development Corporation, and I went to a meeting that we chose a new CEO. His name is Randy Wagner, and he's going to come with the retiring Brent Smith they're coming to Placerville on August 20th, and I sent an email stating this, that they'd like to meet with some of our staff and any of you and talk to you about what our expectations are of them. So they'll be here then. I had a wonderful 4-day, oh my gosh, whirlwind trip with the Chamber of Commerce Study Mission. The Transportation Commission sponsored me, and we went to Vancouver and Victoria, and we're putting together a program. I think I learned a lot of things that I would like to, it's kind of, up there, the water issues were great, but they presented us with a lot of things that they've done, and I think that we can kind of, change the location and maybe make some of the things that they've done work down here. As Tricia said, we had 2 transit meetings in Chief Nielsen's party. I met with several, let's see, had a meeting to discuss the Missouri Flat US 50 bike path option with the Caltrans represented, and then I met with, it's been a bone of contention with me ever since the highway went through, how they kind of changed things on Spring Street and Highway 50, and I've been just yammering at every meeting possible. And so they are accommodating me, and we met after the Transportation Commission meeting, Clark Perry and let's see, I've got her name, Susan Wilson, and so we, and Sharon, we all went out to the site, and I'm going to say that I was happy. I walked away happy. What they're proposing, they got an ADA grant, but they're also going to do some other things, and I really do think that it's going to really improve that situation there and all that backup. And then I also met, like I say, on the US 50 Missouri Flat bike path option. I met with, they had reps from Caltrans and El Dorado County Transportation, and Supervisor Veerkamp and Transportation, and Nate was there too, and I really think that the guy that chaired it, the Transportation Commissioner, the new at El Dorado, what's his name, Bard? Is it Bard? Anyway, he said, look, this has been going on too long. We're going to get this thing settled. And he said, I'm keeping you here till we do. So I really think a lot of really good ideas were put forth, and I think we're going to solve that $4 million problem. And National Night Out, and then I went to another a regular SEDCOR meeting. We went up, this time it was to go to Sierra County, and I'm going to tell you, they presented a program to us. We visited a cattle ranch where they are, Sierra County is really in a world of hurt, and they're having to reinvent the wheel. This Roberti cattle ranch started in the 1800s. Started out with cattle, went to hay, went to #1 crop of alfalfa in the state, and then now they have established a solar farm on their property. And their electric bill was like $150,000, and what they have done with their installation, it's paying for that. They're in their 2nd year. The initial cost was $2 million, which sounds like a lot, but it's going to be paid for in 8 years. They got a lot of grants to help them out too, but now they're talking with surrounding cities of maybe even putting in more solar for them. So it's really, and then we had a wonderful speaker of a young man who saw the need and saw what was available up there, and he started with a bicycle shop and now has gone and expanded, building bicycle paths up there. They've become really renowned for their bringing up a motorbike, not motorbike, motocross. Is that the bicycle, the moto, I'm getting the wrong, mountain bikes. That's it, mountain bikes. And these guys have done the most wonderful job, and they now have put themselves out to volunteer to help all of us anywhere. And he told me that they had been very involved in helping Folsom Lake, putting those trails in. And so I've got his email, and anybody that's interested in having them come, expertise, advice, they're willing to come and talk to anybody. So I was really impressed, as you can tell. But I mean, it's, you know, when you're given lemons and you make lemonade, this was really one of those success stories of both of those that they presented us the program. So anyway, that's it.
You have been busy. My goodness. Well, thank you for all your work, especially on the Transportation Commission.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Some of the highlights of my last couple of weeks. Couple of weeks ago, we met with Benjamin Moore headquarters. They flew out from New Jersey for our Main Street Matters contest, and that was very, very exciting. There was a small group of Downtown Business Association owners, and I met with them. We met for 4 hours, and just basically what we did was we talked about what our ideal scenario would be for the Paint What Matters contest, and we really pushed for Sacramento. You know, they say they're going to paint 3 blocks, and we pushed for our 3 blocks being Sacramento Street to Cedar Ravine. And we walked the entire length of that. We looked at every single building. Benjamin Moore and Paint What Matters took pictures of every single facade within that district. And we don't have any concrete details yet. What they were doing is that their teams were meeting with all the other 20 winners over these last couple of weeks. And now the teams are convening, and they're going to be looking at each city, you know, what they need, because each city has different needs. We also impressed upon them that our Main Street, you know, while they say they're going to paint the first story, our first story is often comprised of windows and rock and brick, which doesn't necessarily need painting, and that could we, you know, swap some of our first story money for the second stories, which really are just facades. And so they're going to take all that into consideration and come back with us, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, with a game plan, a proposal. And what we did find out is those teams will be interfacing directly with property owners. Benjamin Moore will be coming up with a preferred palette for Main Street, taking into account our topography, the lay of the land, what color the buildings are already, and they will be interfacing directly with property owners saying, okay, here's what we could do to refresh your building, here's what we could do with a complete overhaul, you know, keeping in mind a grand color scheme that fits historically and with our community. So I love the fact that it's not infringing on anyone's personal property rights, that they will be a collaborative part of this effort. So, you know, just really great information. We don't have any concrete details yet, but that's what I know so far, and we will certainly keep you apprised of this exciting event when it happens. There is some talk that maybe this could be done by the time the year ends, so that could be very exciting. So they are moving quickly. Took part in all the Transportation Commission, but I would certainly like to give my big thanks to Sharon, the director of the Transportation Commission, and Susan, our Caltrans liaison. I've been working for the last couple of months to get that pile of construction material off of Broadway, and Caltrans has been very responsive to my request, and if you look, it's gone. So I really appreciate that Caltrans doesn't use Placerville as their storage ground, and they were extremely responsive to that, and I greatly appreciate that that is moved off. It certainly has improved the look of Broadway. Also met with Brandon, who is Senator Boxer's aide this last week, and Patty was thrilled. She came into Central and joined it, and he was basically wanting to know.
After a massage, my hair was a mess.
I was so jealous.
She insisted I come over and meet them.
I was so jealous.
Embarrassed.
No, it was wonderful. He basically was wanting to know what our hot buttons are for for the city of Placerville, and just impressed upon them our frustration with the fact that there is no money at a federal or state level for local road maintenance. You know, there's money for new roads, but there's not money at a local jurisdiction to maintain our roads. Impressed upon that. Certainly impressed upon him our great infrastructure needs with our water and our sewer, and the fact that we're held at much higher standards in the foothills than Sacramento, which impacts the cost to our consumers. So had a nice meeting with him. And then spent an inordinate amount of time with Vice Mayor Hagan on Hangtown Haven. And we will be coming before the Board of Supervisors with a workshop on September 10th. And we're wanting to move it to Perks Court. It is zoned correctly for this kind of legal encampment. We have been meeting with all different agencies and players, and really appreciate Vice Mayor Hagan's time with me on this. Or in really good talks with Green Valley Community Church at looking at a higher level of collaboration with them to support this effort. Also working with El Dorado Community Foundation, Bill Roby, on that. So we're making headway, and if you support the move for a county site to Hangtown Haven, would greatly appreciate respectful letters of support to the Board of Supervisors and showing up on September 10th for that public workshop. So look forward to that. And I had a birthday party this last Sunday for Hangtown Haven. It was their first year anniversary, and so I went to that, and would just like to impress upon the public that, no solution is perfect, but this is working. And that the challenges that we are having within our community, those are not the people that are at Hangtown Haven. There are people that wouldn't qualify to be there. The people that don't want to be a part of any solution. And if you get to talk to the people at Hangtown Haven, I said, to one of them that's been there a year, I said, what's next for you? Why haven't you moved on? I was kind of, I got in his face and asked him a very direct question. And he said, he says, I've had troubles with drinking and with my addictions. And he says, I've been clean and sober, now for a year. He says, I don't quite trust myself to be out on my own. He says, I'm finding great support systems here. I'm still getting my legs. I'm close, but I know this about myself, and I just need this support for just a little while longer. And there were a lot of stories like that. Had another gentleman that had been kicked out of Hangtown Haven for drinking about 5 months ago. He's now been clean and sober for 4 months. He's back in, and he says, this is the first time my family's been proud of me. There are success stories there. It is worth supporting. It needs to move off of Broadway. So would really appreciate your support for this move. And then lastly, I was asked to be a keynote speaker in the city of Vallejo, who is looking at a legal encampment. And so I met with them a couple of weeks ago and showed them what we've done, and met with the mayor and some of the council members and a team of advocates, as well as the homeless population there, and had a lively discussion on that. And what's amazing is that we are getting emails and talks from cities all over the West saying, what are you doing? Because there is no huge money solution to this, and it is working. So we are, being looked at as a creative solution to a very challenging problem. Yes?
Wendy, I just heard in the news tonight that Auburn now they're establishing theirs.
Yeah.
And if you remember, we made contact with them.
That's
and
right.
again, through SEDCOR, the
right.
Auburn representatives. So they're following through, and they're going to do it. So.
Well, very interesting. All right. So with that, end of council member reports. Thank you all for indulging us. City manager and staff reports.
I don't think we have anything major, Mayor and Council, but I just want to, I know there's been a lot of speculation about our new police chief position.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I can't make that announcement tonight, but at our next meeting, I will be prepared to make that. We're just finalizing the background check and all of the other information, things that we need to do to finalize that. So our expectation is to have that person on board probably the week after Labor Day, perhaps the day after Labor Day. Great. So that's what we're looking at.
We will look forward to that. Thank you. Yes, Vice Mayor Hagan.
On Tuesday, August 20th at 10 a.m. at the Board of Supervisors meeting, there's a time certain for a presentation by SACOG on the blueprint. Blueprint is the concept of building close to your infrastructure and utilizing infrastructure you have instead of expanding and building a lot of homes out in the hinterland. So the city of Placerville is part of that blueprint project. About 10 years ago, I think, is when that was put together originally. And this, if people have questions about SACOG and about the blueprint, the Board of Supervisors meeting Tuesday, August 20th at 10 o'clock in the morning, there'll be a presentation on that along with questions and answers. I believe it's about an hour maximum because it is their regular board time. So anyway, that's the only thing I have.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hagan. Upcoming items, Mr. Morris.
we didn't get those on your agenda, I just noticed, but a couple of items of interest, obviously the continued items from tonight, hopefully will be on that meeting if we get them ready by then. And then one item that's been of interest, our park ordinance, we hope to be bringing back at that meeting. And I'll look at my staff. Any other big items that you know of, staff, that we're looking at for that meeting? Those are the obvious ones that I know of. So.
All right. Thank you. And with that, we will adjourn to our next regular council meeting to be held on August 27th, 5 p.m. closed session, 6 p.m. regular session. And good night, Placerville.